Hey everybody, this is Soren from Hennepin RestoMods. I'm here back with our 1950 Chevy 3800 farm truck. This has got a 2001 Silverado chassis underneath, the original 1950 body, 1950 bed with the grain sides on it. So this project is done on, we'll call it phase 1.5. It is driving. We've got functional lights on there. Still a lot of things to really make this a daily driver, but this truck is probably going to be back for some of those things slowly over time as we kind of work through it. But right now we're going to walk through a little bit of the project and kind of talk about what we've done and how it's worked and what worked well and what didn't work, and kind of let you see how we did this, melding the 1950 with the 2001. So this is the 1950 Chevy 3800 farm truck in its what I'll call my phase 1.5. The truck is running, it is driving, it's got lights, all the basic stuff needed to drive, and we're hoping this thing will actually get a chance to drive home. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit about what we did and kind of where this project is at. So underneath the hood here, you're going to see what is pretty common to a lot of modern hot rods, a GM 6-liter LS family V8. So this is the LQ4. It's from a early 2000s. It's a 3rd gen LS engine. So what you're going to see underneath here is basically everything is stock. We've mounted the battery, the ECM, and the fuse box where it was convenient for both the chassis and the existing wiring harness. And then the only other thing under here that's really very much not stock is the intake. So you can see that what we've done is actually meld part of the original intake with the mass airflow sensor and an aftermarket air filter. So we've basically put a real small intake system on the end of the intake manifold to fit where the large stock unit wouldn't fit very well. Because we're running the original fan, there's not a lot of clearance in there, and that's really what kind of drives that odd shape to the intake manifold. Everything else underneath here, basically stock. The wiring harness stock, the engine and all the components on it stock. There are a few things that we did on this that are not quite stock. So we did end up pounding out both fenders here on the driver's side. The driver's side fender on the front was quite bashed in. Was a little bit of risk there of actually cutting the tires. And then we repainted that fender simply because we ended up taking it down to metal to get that thing bent back out. And then in the back, while we pounded that fender out a little bit, we've left it mostly stock. But the two things that you'll be able to see here pretty clearly is that fender has moved back a bit on the body. It's a little bit further back than it was originally, and you can see the gap between the running board and the fender. That was basically to match the wheelbase. So the original wheelbase on the Silverado was definitely longer than it was on the 1950. The hope is that at some point in the future we'll be able to modify the truck and be able to move that axle forward, likely through a 4-bar link suspension rather than the long leaf springs that are in there, and that'll allow us to move that fender right back up to the running board. The other thing that's not in here is the piece that matches between the running board and the bottom of the bed. Because of the movement of the fender and because we've got on this side have the new filler neck from the Silverado for the gas tank, it ended up not making a lot of sense to put those in. So what we have instead is kind of a gap there right now. So those pieces again are here, they're still with the truck. We hope to get them back in, and that'll be kind of a future phase on the truck. Everything else on the outside of the truck basically is more or less as we got it. We've obviously cleaned it up, but we've left it essentially as is. On the back here, you'll see some things here that definitely are not 1950. The taillights underneath there are modern from a flatbed pickup. And then we've got the trailer hitch that came off of the Silverado there as well. So they more or less fit here. Don't look too out of shape. But at some point, I think some more vintage style lights and potentially a small rear bumper above that trailer hitch would definitely be in order. Inside the truck, we've left this as stock as we can. Unfortunately, right now, that means that the gauges don't work, but everything else has basic functionality. We've got headlights and turn signals. We have a gear shifter and an ignition key in there. The gear shifter and the ignition key are actually from the Silverado, as is the entire steering column, but the steering wheel is from the original 1950 truck. So it turns out that the spline count on the 1950 steering wheel is actually identical to the Silverado steering wheel. The steering wheel sits quite a bit different. The modern steering wheel is very deep and houses the airbag inside. This one sits much flatter, so it's a little bit more awkward. But we have both the tilt wheel still in place here. So we have the tilt wheel still in place on this, so we can actually do the tilt the wheel as appropriate for the driver. And then we had the original shifter in place, but in place of the original shifter, what we've actually used is a piece of a tire iron, bent just slightly to be a little bit more retro. The original key is still here, but not functional. We've got the Silverado key hanging beneath the dash, and again, that's something that will eventually use the original key as in place of the modern key. So hopefully you enjoyed this short video about our 1950 Chevy 3800 farm truck. This has been kind of a fun, little bit of a labor of love. This is a family truck, belonged to my wife's grandfather originally, and now belongs to some of the cousins. So it's really exciting to see this truck, which was a true barn find, sitting in a barn from 1988 until 2018 when we got it, back on the road and running again. And it'll be even more exciting when we get to see this thing head back out to the farm and get back into use with some of the cousins. If you like this build and want to see more projects like this or more about this project in the future, please subscribe to our channel on YouTube, or follow us on Facebook or Instagram and see some of the other RestoMods and project cars that we're working on right now.